Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday we started the new series of Spring Boot tutorial. Yesterday we discussed about how to create a Spring Boot project, what are its advantages, what are all the different forms of applications we can create, how to set up a Spring Boot project, how to change the port number, etc. So today we are going to discuss about lots of the annotations of Spring Boot. Okay, so there are many annotations we will use in a Spring Boot, like REST annotations, the Spring Core annotations, as well as the MVC annotations, etc. Let us look into that, and then we will see some examples on that. Okay, so these are all the annotations we can use. I have categorized into 5 forms, but here I have listed only 3 forms: Spring Boot annotations, Spring Boot REST annotations, Spring Core annotations, and then AOP annotations, then MVC annotations, then Spring Data JP annotations, like that. There are many annotations out there. The Spring Boot application annotation is used to bootstrap the Spring Boot application. Enable auto configuration annotation is used to auto configure the Spring Boot, because Spring Boot means auto configuration. Everything is been happen in a on fly, like initializing the dispatcher servlet, configuring the Tomcat server, converting the Java type to JSON type, and then configuring a data source. Everything will be auto configured. And the REST annotations, which are used to develop the REST applications, means the heart of the REST application is URI. Through the URI, you can get the output in the different formats, which can be an XML, which can be an HTML, which can be a JSON, etc. Now, you want to display the list of employees, you can use a get method, and you can use XML, HTML, or JSON formats. You want to display the customer with respect to ID, again, you can use a get method with respect to ID, and you can get the output in the form of JSON or a HTML, or you can also get in the form of the XML formats. Okay, so these are all the annotations like REST controller, get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping, path variable, request body, response body are used. And along with that, Spring dependency injection annotations, core annotations are used. Auto-wide is used to collaborate or communicate the more than one bean. Repository, service, controller, and component are the class level stereotype annotations used to access the data access logic, business logic, presentation logic, respectively. Then the component annotation is a form of these 3 annotations. Bean is used to configure the bean and then wire the bean. The configuration annotation is a class level annotation used instead of XML file. It represents a configuration file, and then it is used to make sure that no XML files are used. And then component scan is a stereotype. It's a class level annotation and used to scan the packages for the classes annotated with the stereotype annotation. So now let's use these annotations, and then we will show some examples. Okay, so let's start yesterday's project, which I have created this one, and I have changed my application port as 7878. Now let's run this program, and then whether the application runs or not, let's check it. And it is up and run. Okay, so now what I am going to do is I will create a one simple controller here called hello controller. Okay, so now I will use the REST controller annotation here. So REST controller annotation is basically used to display the output in a different formats. Okay, now through the URI. Now that URI you can use it in the another platforms like React.js, AngularJS, and show the output there. Okay, so used to develop the REST application, we will use it. REST controller, then I will use a get mapping. It is introduced in both annotations are introduced in Spring 4. Okay, so help. Then public string show return by hello over. Okay, that's it. So now let's run this application. So let's run this application. and it is running here. HTTP localhost 7878, then help, and you got out. Hi, hello, how are you? Fine. So now you can also use some HTML tags here. You can also use HTML tags here. You can also display it in big letters. And you get the output. Fine. So understood. Now, this REST controller annotation is basically the introduced in Spring 4. It is a mixture of controller plus response body annotation. Please make sure that it's a mixture of controller plus response body annotation. It's a mixture of controller plus response body annotation. Okay, so make sure that it's a mixture of. So now what I can do here is I can just cut the rest here, and then I will run it. Oh, I have not saved it. I have saved it. I'm running it. So it is now, you can see the output here. You will not get. Okay, so it expects some UI. It expects some UI. So you need to write the web application here so that you can present that output to the JSP file or some timely view. Correct? Because you annotated with a controller. So then still you want to develop a REST application using the annotating with a controller, then you can use the one more annotation called response body. So this proves that the REST controller annotation is a mixture of controller plus response body. Got it? So now you can just refresh this. You can see the output. So what you can do is here, you can either use a REST controller or you can use a controller plus response body. Got it? Clear now? Okay, now like that the REST controller. So now I will use the REST controller itself. I'm not going to use the controller plus response body. Because mine's Spring it is boot now, always uses the Spring version as 5. Okay. Okay. Now, is there any other way that I can, instead of get mapping, I can use another one? Yes, we can also use the request mapping. So this is exactly similar to the get method. Okay, so get method is also introduced in Spring 4.0. So instead of using get method, you can also use request mapping, value, method, attributes. Like producers, consumes are also, other attributes are also there where you want to get in another formats. Okay, so now let's run this application. It will give us same output as earlier it was. So I'm just relaunching, okay? So now we can refresh this, no change. Fine. Suppose you want to provide the path at the class level, then you can't use a get mapping. Get mapping must be used at the method level, but only you can also use the request mapping at the class level. You can use request mapping here, and you can use Spring Boot. Okay, so now you can see the output here. You will get the error. So it is 404 error, which is the white label error. So why? Because it also requires the class level URL pattern. Got it? I hope you cleared about the get mapping, request mapping, REST controller, response body, annotations. Got it? So REST controller means what? You want to display the output in the form of message formats through URI. Controller means what? You want to show the output on the JSPs, time life views, etc. Got it? Fine. So now, yesterday I told that the Spring Boot application is an annotation which bootstraps the uh, Spring Boot application. See here, whenever you develop the Spring MEC application or Spring REST applications without Spring Boot, you are configuring the dispatcher servlet, you are configuring the Jackson data binds and everything. But here everything has been auto configured. Who will do that auto configuration? So that for that we use this annotation called enable auto configuration. And then component scan scans the class packages for the classes annotated with the stereotype annotation. Configuration is basically a config represents the configuration file. Now all three annotations are mixed with the Spring Boot application. Okay, so now I will prove it like that. The REST controller annotation is a mixture of controller and response body. I will also prove that Spring Boot application is a combination of these three annotations. Okay, let's prove that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a two classes. One is a welcome bean, and the one is a welcome controller, and the one is this Spring Boot application class. Okay, let's create a one class called welcome bean. This is a welcome bean. Then it has a one method called return string. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to instantiate this bean through the auto wire. So I will create a one class called the welcome controller. I will annotate with the REST controller annotation. Here I will write welcome. Here I will write the get and welcome. I want to call that method. So what I will do, I will create instantiate that to auto wire welcome bean. You can call that method. Fine. Return is missing. So now if I run the program, okay, now I'm going to get the error here. Correct. If I run the program, I'm going to get the error here. Why I'm going to get the error? Because a welcome bean I created. So, and then the welcome controller, I am auto wiring this. Now, how it understand that welcome is a bean? How it understand that welcome is a bean? So that's why you are going to get the error here. If I run the program, I'm going to get the error. Let me relaunch the application and see here. We're going to get the error. And you got that. What is the error? It is showing that the welcome controller required a bean of a type Spring Boot dot welcome. So it never understands that welcome is a bean. You are auto wired the in the welcome controller with the welcome type. But how does it understand that welcome is a bean? Because you have not used the stereotype annotation for that. So now I need to use a stereotype annotation, just like any one of that component or something. So now I will run this application. Okay, and now it is compiled. And now I will go to the welcome controller, and then there is no class level URL pattern. So I need to use only welcome. So means what I need to, this is the old one. And here I should remove the hello. And then Spring Boot also I need to remove, just write welcome. And we got that. Okay, welcome to Spring Boot. Got it? Welcome to Spring Boot. Okay, so what I was asking, I'm getting the welcome to Spring Boot. It is coming. Fine. Okay. So now what? I have not yet proved that the Spring Boot application is a mixture of enable auto configuration. How to prove that? How to prove that Spring Boot application is a mixture of enable auto configuration? So what I can do here is that I can cut the component annotation here. Oops. I can cut the component annotation. Fine. So now you are going to get the error because welcome controller never understands that it is a B. Correct. So and here I will not going to make any change. Correct. I'm not going to make any change. Okay. Here everything is fine. Now here the main program. So what I will do, I will cut this annotation. Okay. And then I will put the enable auto configuration. I will put the enable auto configuration. Correct. So it will configure it automatically. I mean, what it actually does, it will wires the bean as well as it configures the bean. It wires the bean, configures the bean. Correct. So this annotation will wire the bean and configure the bean, and it will run the program now. Fine. So it wires the bean and configure the one, and it is running. Now let's check it whether it will show the output or not. Okay, so what is the welcome controller here? The welcome controller notation is that welcome. And you got the error. Why? Because you have not configured it. You have not configured it. You need to configure the beans here. You need to configure the bean here. Since you are not using a Spring Boot application annotation, so you need to configure it. So how you can configure it? Explicitly, you need to configure it. So you should use the bean annotation. So what is the enable auto configuration does? Configures the bean and then wires the bean. So two beans I need to configure. So remember, I have removed the component annotation here. So I need to configure this also. And as well as I need to configure the welcome controller also. So I'll configure it. So now I have configured the both beans. So now I have configured the both beans. Now this is the welcome. I have configured there, and this is the welcome controller. I have configured there. Okay, and then I am using not a Spring Boot application. I am using the enable auto configuration. So now let's run the program. Choose welcome here. Got it. Got it? Understood what is the use of enable auto configuration annotation? Okay. Now, what I can do here is I can also make use of the component scan annotation here. Component scan annotation is basically what? used to scan the packages which are annotated with the classes are annotated with the stereotype annotation. So what I can do here is I will use a component scan annotation. When I use a component scan annotation, so since all my controller class, bean classes in the same package, so no need to give any package name. So main program also in a Spring Boot package, okay. Bean also in a Spring Boot package, as well as the which one? The controller is also in a Spring Boot package. So no need to write any packages here. Okay. So once I use a component scan, I need to cut these. These are not required now, because automatically it detects the classes annotated with the stereotype annotation. So it detects the welcome controller. It automatically scans it because it is annotated with the stereotype annotation. But welcome is not annotated with the stereotype annotation, correct? So again, you will get an error. So now to do this, again, you need to write a component here. Fine. So now see here, now instead of Spring Boot application, I'm using these two couple of annotations, and then let us change some sentence here to some other sentence. I will put Spring Boot tutorial. That's for a change. Okay. Now let's relaunch it again. Okay. Spelling is wrong there. Excuse for that. Okay. And then you can also make the class level request. Class level request mapping. You'll get error now because you have a class level request mapping. Okay. So understood. Now what is the use of these things? Now what I can do now, I can go to the main program, and then I can cut this. I can cut this, and then I can uncomment this. Okay. I can uncomment this, then the hello controller is fine, then the welcome is also fine. So let's run it again. The code again works properly. Okay, now you can check here, the code will work properly. See, perfect. Okay, and if you miss the SV here, you will get a white label error. Correct, because wrong you are. Understood? So how now you can do that? Spring Boot application is a mixture of enable auto configuration and configuration component scan annotations. I hope you got clear about these things. Got it? So now get mapping also you got cleared. Next one. What are all the other annotations we are going to use? Okay. So the REST annotations, REST controller you've done, get mapping we have done. These will be discussed in a CRUD application. The request mapping is done. Now, what is a path variable, request body, and response body? We will not use too much because if I use REST controller and that's it, the response body is not at all necessary. Now, what is the use of request body and what is the use of path variable? Now, the path variable is basically used to supply the URL parameters in the URL at a runtime. Okay. So now let's create a one class called my control. Okay. My control. I want to display the name of a particular employee. Okay. But I want to inject that name from the URL parameter. Okay. How I can do that? So I will use a REST controller here. Then I will use the get mapping. Okay. Then employee. Now here what I will do, I will use a name. Okay. Then public string show. And here I will use a path variable annotation. Name string name. Okay. Return h1 welcome to Spring Boot Spring REST by plus name. Okay. Now, welcome to Spring Boot Spring REST by name. This name I'm going to inject in a URL as a parameter dynamically. Okay. So now see here, this is a path variable binds this name, or whatever the name you enter after employee, that name will be bound with this name, and then it will populate that. Okay, now let's run the program. I need to write the employee slash, then the name I need to inject. Okay. So now let's write the employee. You will get error. Okay, because I need to inject. So let's inject the Girish. And still you are getting error. Okay, because I have added the SV here. So there was no SV at the class level. Okay, so that means remove this SV because it is not a class level request mapping is not present. And got it. Got it? So at a runtime, whatever the name you enter, it will be displayed here. See? Okay, like that. Fine. Understood. You can also inject the many parameters in the URL path of a different types. Suppose I want to display the employee Ajit born on with the date of birth so and so, who qualified with BTech, BE, and then PhD. So how I can do that? How I can do that? So let's see. Let's create a one more method called get. Then I will use the EMP. Okay. Or I will use the same, nothing will happen. Okay. Here I will use name. I will import the util package. Then here I will use the date of birth. Then, sorry, the qualification. Qualification qual I will use. Qual. Okay. Public string info. Any method you can use. Okay. Get mapping, employee, name, date of birth, and qualification. Qualification. Okay, whatever. So here path variable. I will use the name. Oops. Then string name. Then the path variable DOB. Date DOB. Path variable qual list string qual. Okay. Now return h1 employee plus name with date of birth born on to be qualified by at date of birth, qualified with uh, list value dot to string. Fine. So that's it. Now let's run the application. See what happens. Okay. So let's go to the annotation here. So I need to write the name, date of birth, and query. Okay. So let's see what happens. So this one is the first one. The second one I want to write the Vinay, 10th of July 2000. Okay. Then BE MTech PhD, and it is showing. Employee Vinay has a date of birth Monday, July 10 o'clock, qualified with BE MTech PhD. Correct. So this is how you can inject the parameters to the URL at a runtime. Understood? Okay. So understood now? Now if I write only name, then you will get the only Vinay for the first method. Okay. Fine. For the other controller, again for this one, for this welcome controller, SV and welcome, you will get that welcome message. Okay. Okay. And then for the hello controller, you have this Spring Boot hello. So like that. Okay. So like that. Understood? Okay. So next what is the, I think we discussed all the rest annotations. The request body is the only one is remaining. So delete, put, and post mapping we'll discuss in the CRUD application. Okay. So now what is the use of the request body annotation? Okay. Suppose I want to provide the input to a request. How you can provide an input to the request? Can you provide an input to the request? Okay. So in this case, I want to find the sum of two numbers. I want to provide an input from the keyboard. Is it possible? Can I find the sum of couple of numbers? Find the sum of two numbers by providing an input from the keyboard. How I can do that? Let's see that. So let's do one thing. Let's create a one new class called summation. Okay. Then declare two variables. Generate getters and setter methods. Okay. So now I'm going to create a one class called summation controller. Okay. The spelling is wrong. Okay. Done. So now, as usual, it's a REST application. I will annotate with the REST controller annotation. So now I want to give the input from the keyboard to the request in the form of parameters. So means what? I need to use a post method here. Use a post method. So using a post method is equivalent to what? Like this also. Request method value equal to sum, method equal to request method dot post. or you can directly use a post mapping. So I'm using, sorry, REST controller. Here it should not come like this. Here it should come. Okay, sum. Okay, so now public, it returns the sum of two numbers. So int summation. Okay. Now I need to give the input from the keyboard, so that it will goes as a request parameters. Okay, so I should use here the annotation for the request body. Right. Okay, and then summation, then return summation dot oops get num1 plus summation dot get. Fine, that's it. Now this is a post method. How you can check it from the browser? You can't check it from the browser here. So for that, you need to use a one REST application testing tool. So you can only check the get method, but you can't check the post method. Now, if I write here the sum, it will show method is not supported. It will show what? The method is not allowed. So what should I do? I should use the one testing tool called Postman. I will use a Postman here. Correct? So now what is a URL pattern? Sum. We don't have any class level URL pattern. So I should use a sum, and then I can give the input in the request parameters. So this, you need to download the Postman from the Google. So Google, you can go to the Google, download Postman, and then it will be gets downloaded. Okay, download it. Okay, because for the REST application downloading, so this is a methods. You have all the methods here, get, post, and everything. So see, you can also check the get method here. So one of the get method is what here. So one of the get method is here that Spring Boot help. So it will work. Okay. You will not get any color and everything here, but you will get that. Still, there is some errors. A port number is different. So it is showing that the output is that hi, hello, how are you? That's the first example, and its the response is 200. Okay. Now similarly, if I write sum here, and it shows the method is not allowed. Correct. So what you should do, you need to change it to post method. Okay, and then here you should go to body. Then here you need to go to the raw. Okay, and then here you need to change it to JSON. Default it uses JSON. Okay, so you can write here num1, num2. So this num1 and num2 must be matched with these things. Num1 and num2 must be matched with these variables. Okay, then you can write the sum. So it's integer means you should always give the double quotes only, because it is the I think not required. Double quote is not required. Integer, na? Now you can run it, and you can see the sum 20. Got it? Understood? And then you can just go to send here 110. Okay, and send. Okay, got it? Understood? How you can't do this with the help of the browser. Either you can use a Postman tool, or you can use some REST API documentation tools like the Swagger or something, or you can also write the consumer program using a REST template and consume this service. Okay, so post method, delete method, and put method cannot be checked with help of the browser. Only get method you can do it. Understood? I think that's it for this tutorial. I hope you understood all the annotations of the Spring Boot or Spring REST application annotations. Okay, I hope you are thorough with all the annotations. The post and delete, we will do it at the time of CRUD application development. Okay, in the next tutorial, I will tell you how to serve the uh, web pages, means how to develop the MEC applications. Okay, I hope you understood, and we will discuss about the development of the web application in the next tutorial. Okay, fine. So okay, so that's it. Thank you.